The galactic Concord Hall floated above a blue star, held in place by ancient gravity anchors that no living species fully understood anymore. Its wide glass arcs reflected distant galaxies, and inside, thousands of delegates sat in silent order. Each seat belonged to a species that had earned power, fear, or influence across the stars. Humanity's seat was small. It was not placed near the center. It was not raised. It did not glow with status lights or symbols of conquest. It was simply there, added recently, as a technical formality. Humans were classified as a developing interstellar culture. Curious, adaptable, but unimportant. Elias Ward stood beside that seat, hands folded calmly behind his back. He wore a plain diplomatic uniform. No medals, no decorations, no visible technology beyond a small translation band at his wrist. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and his expression was neutral, almost relaxed, as if he were waiting for a train instead of standing before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Around him, other delegates whispered. The insectoid Kel watched him with clicking curiosity. The tall, crystal-skinned Veil ignored him completely. The aquatic representatives pulsed faint colors that suggested boredom. No one expected much from the human. High above them all sat the alien Empress. Her throne was grown, not built. It curved upward like frozen light, shaped by living matter older than most stars in the region. Her form was tall and elegant, wrapped in flowing energy veils that shifted with her thoughts. Her eyes, many and layered, saw more than shape or color. They saw probability, history, and intent. She had ruled for over 900 standard cycles. She had seen species rise and vanish. Humans did not impress her. The session began with ritual tones echoing through the hall. The Concord speaker announced trade disputes, border disagreements, and resource petitions. Elias listened carefully. He made no notes. He asked no questions. When the time came for minor delegations to speak, the speaker's voice paused. The Human Systems Alliance may present their statement. A few heads turned. Some delegates adjusted their translators, expecting confusion or awkward words. Elias stepped forward. He did not bow deeply. He did not show fear. He simply inclined his head, a respectful but equal gesture. "Thank you for allowing humanity to speak," he said. His voice was calm, clear, almost soft. "We come not to demand space, nor to challenge borders. We come to observe, to understand, and to offer cooperation where it is welcome." That was it. No grand speech, no dramatic claims, no promises of power. Murmurs rippled through the hall. A few delegates looked amused. Others looked annoyed. The Empress watched closely. Most minor species tried too hard. They begged, they praised, they exaggerated their value. This human did none of that. The speaker tilted their head. "Is that all?" Alias nodded. For now. A ripple of confusion passed through the assembly. Then something strange happened. Instead of stepping back, Elias remained where he was. His eyes lifted slightly, not to the Empress, but to the hall itself, to the patterns of seating, to the energy flow along the floor, to the way certain species clustered together. He spoke again. "If I may add one observation," he said gently. "Several trade routes discussed today intersect unstable regions. The Concord may wish to review redundancy protocols before the next cycle." Silence followed. A Veil delegate clicked in irritation. "That is not your concern, human." Elias turned toward the sound, polite and unoffended.
"It will be," he replied, "sooner than expected."
The words were not a threat. They were spoken like a weather report. The Empress leaned forward slightly. That was when Elias adjusted his sleeve. It was a small movement. Casual. Almost unconscious. The fabric slid back just enough to reveal a mark on his forearm. The Empress saw it clearly. The symbol was simple. A circle broken by 3 intersecting lines, uneven but deliberate. It was not decorative. It was not artistic. It was functional. Her breath caught. Her energy veils flickered. For the first time in centuries, the alien Empress stepped back. The motion was slight, but unmistakable. A wave of unease spread through the hall. Delegates noticed her reaction instantly. Whispers rose, sharp and confused. The Empress stared at the mark. Memory surged, not her own memory alone, but recorded echoes passed down through rulers who came before her. Locked archives, forbidden warnings. Stories treated as myths because accepting them was too uncomfortable. She spoke without realizing it, her voice barely above a whisper. That mark, it belongs to the legend. The hall fell silent. Elias froze. Slowly, carefully, he pulled his sleeve back down. I believe there has been a misunderstanding, he said. The Empress ignored him. Her mind raced through ancient records. A time before the Concord, before stable empires. A time when the galaxy nearly tore itself apart through cascading failures, not war, but systems collapsing under their own weight. And then, intervention. No fleets, no conquerors. Just changes. Quiet adjustments. Economic corrections. Political deadlocks that resolved overnight. Supply lines that reformed themselves. The galaxy survived, and the ones responsible vanished. The legend said they left a mark. The speaker broke the silence nervously. Your radiance, is there an issue? The Empress did not answer at once. She stood, rising to her full height. The energy in the hall shifted, heavy and alert. Human envoy, she said at last. Step forward. As he walked, eyes followed him with new attention. The amusement was gone. The boredom vanished. Something had changed. You carry that symbol openly? The Empress asked. Elias hesitated. Not openly, he said, but I do not hide it. Why? She pressed. Because it is not a weapon, Elias replied. It is a reminder. A reminder of what? She asked. Elias met her gaze. He did not flinch. That systems fail, he said, and that someone must notice before it is too late. The Empress felt a chill ripple through her form. You claim knowledge of the legend, she said carefully. I claim inheritance, Elias answered. Cultural, not biological. The word inheritance echoed through the hall. A Kell delegate clicked sharply. Impossible. The continuum bearers vanished before our species evolved. Elias turned slightly. Yes, he agreed. We know. The Empress raised a hand, silencing all others. How long has humanity known of this? She asked. Elias considered the question. Long enough to stop calling it a legend, he said. Not long enough to stop hoping we would never need it again. 1,000 questions burned in the Empress's mind, but she forced herself to slow down. Power had taught her patience. You will explain, she said. But not here. She turned to the speaker. This session is adjourned. Gasps erupted across the hall. Adjournment without consensus was unheard of. The Empress did not care. She descended from her throne, her movement controlled but urgent. Guards moved to escort Elias, but she waved them away. He comes willingly, she said. Elias inclined his head. Yes. As they left the hall, whispers exploded behind them. What was that symbol? Why did she react? Who are the humans really? Elias walked in silence beside the Empress through corridors lined with living light. He did not smile. He did not look afraid. Inside, his thoughts were steady. The mark on his arm had been placed there during training, not as a ceremony, but as a choice to carry responsibility without authority, to act without recognition. Most humans never took that path. He had. They entered a private chamber sealed against all observation. The doors closed, and the light dimmed to a soft glow. The Empress turned to him. Speak, she said. Now. Your systems are drifting, he began. Your trade networks are overextended. Your political balance relies on assumptions that are no longer true. You dare, she started. I dare because no one else will, Elias said calmly. And because when the collapse begins, it will not look like an attack. It will look like confusion, shortages, delays, mistrust. She stared at him, anger and fear mixing. And humanity? She asked. What role do you play in this, Drift? Elias's eyes softened. We watch, he said. We map failure patterns. We build alternatives, quietly. Not to rule, not to replace. Then why reveal yourselves now? She demanded. Elias hesitated again.
Because the window is closing, he said.
And because you noticed the mark. The Empress looked away, ancient pride shaken. If the legend is true, she said slowly, then your kind does not conquer. No, Elias agreed. We prepare. Silence filled the chamber. Far beyond the Concord Hall, stars burned as they always had, unaware that an old promise had resurfaced. Humanity had not come to ask for power. They had come because the galaxy was starting to break. And this time, they were no longer hiding the mark. The chamber remained silent for a long time after Elias spoke. The alien Empress stood near the edge of the room, her back turned to him. The living walls shifted slowly, responding to her thoughts. They dimmed and brightened in gentle waves, like a quiet breath. Outside the sealed chamber, the galactic Concord waited in confusion, unaware that something old and dangerous had just been acknowledged. You speak of collapse as if it is certain, the Empress finally said. Elias did not rush to answer. He had learned long ago that power respected patience more than urgency. Not certain, he said, but likely. And likelihood increases when no one wants to see it. She turned to face him, her many eyes focused sharply, analyzing every detail of his posture, his tone, the rhythm of his breathing.
You are young, she said. Your species is young.
What makes you believe you understand forces that have shaped this galaxy for millennia? Elias nodded slightly as if he had expected the question. Because we have broken our own systems more than once, he replied, and we survived by learning from it. The Empress felt a strange reaction to that answer. Most species hid their failures. Humans named them openly. She moved closer, studying him. The legend speaks of beings who changed outcomes without commanding armies, she said. They adjusted trade flows, redefined alliances, and introduced redundancies before disasters occurred. Entire civilizations were saved without ever knowing who helped them. Yes, Elias said. That is accurate. Her eyes narrowed. And you claim humans inherited this role. We inherited the knowledge, he corrected gently, not the authority. She let out a slow breath. Then explain the mark. Elias raised his arm again, this time without hesitation. The symbol was clear under the chamber light. It is not a badge, he said. It is a reminder of responsibility. Those who carry it are trained to recognize system failure patterns, political, economic, social. We are taught to intervene quietly, only when needed. How many of you exist? She asked. Enough, Elias said. Not many. The Empress considered this. Why reveal yourself to me? She asked again. Because your position gives you reach, Elias said, and because you still have a choice.
A choice between what? She demanded. Between controlled change and uncontrolled collapse, he answered.
Before she could reply, The chamber lights shifted abruptly. A subtle alert pulsed through the walls. The speaker's voice echoed faintly from the corridor beyond the sealed doors. Your Radiance, the assembly is unsettled. Delegates are demanding explanation. The Empress closed her eyes briefly. She turned back to Elias. You will address them. Elias looked surprised. Me? You started this, she said. Now you will calm it. Elias hesitated. Speaking openly had never been the plan. Quiet correction worked best when unnoticed, but the mark had been seen. The moment had already changed. As you wish, he said. The doors opened. The sound hit them immediately. Voices overlapped. Languages clashed through translators. Fear, suspicion, and curiosity filled the hall. As Elias stepped forward beside the Empress, silence spread again, slower this time, but heavier. All eyes turned toward the human. The veiled delegate rose first. Your Radiance, they said sharply. You ended the session without explanation. This human disrupted protocol. Murmurs of agreement followed. The Empress raised a hand. The disruption was necessary. That answer only deepened the tension. Elias took one step forward. I did not come to disrupt, he said calmly. I came to warn. Several delegates reacted at once. Warn us of what? By what authority? Is this a threat? Elias waited until the noise faded. Of instability, he said. Of systems stretched too far relying on outdated assumptions. The insectoid Kell clicked loudly. Bold claims for a minor species. Elias nodded. We were once minor too. We failed anyway. That unexpected honesty caused a ripple of unease. You speak as if you know the future, another delegate said. No, Elias replied. We recognize patterns. The Empress stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. The symbol the human carries, she announced, exists in our oldest records, long before the Concord. Gasps echoed across the hall. Impossible, someone whispered. The records are incomplete, she continued. But they describe a group who prevented a galaxy-wide collapse without ruling it. Eyes returned to Elias, this time not dismissive, but wary. You claim to be them? The Veil demanded. No, Elias said. We claim to have learned from them. The speaker leaned forward. Then why now? Elias looked across the vast chamber. He saw pride, fear, denial. Then all familiar. Because resource routes are converging, he said. Because political dependencies are tightening. Because redundancy has been traded for efficiency. The word efficiency caused discomfort. Many empires prided themselves on it. You think we are fragile, the Veil snapped. I think you are optimized, Elias replied. And optimized systems fail harder. Silence followed. The Empress studied the delegates carefully, but also something more dangerous, doubt. This session will continue, she said. But under review? She turned to Elias. You will remain. He inclined his head. Over the next cycles, Elias was questioned endlessly, not interrogated. Examined, economists challenged him with models. He pointed out blind spots. Strategists dismissed his concerns. Their simulations failed under slight changes, he suggested. Historians argued the legend was symbolic. Elias showed correlations too precise to ignore. He never raised his voice. He never claimed superiority. He simply showed them where assumptions broke. Some delegates grew hostile. Others grew quiet. The Empress watched it all. What disturbed her most was not what Elias said, but what he did not say. He never offered solutions directly. He asked questions instead. What happens if this trade route fails? Who absorbs the loss if this alliance dissolves? What if your rivals choose patience instead of aggression? Slowly, uncomfortably, answers ran out. In private, the Empress reviewed data she had not examined in centuries. Emergency reserves, supply buffers, social stability indices. They were thinner than she remembered. Late one cycle, she summoned Elias again. You were right, she said quietly. We are drifting. Elias did not react. Why does humanity care? She asked. You could isolate yourselves. We tried that once, Elias said. It didn't work. She studied him. You speak as if you've done this before? We have, he said, on a smaller scale. She turned toward the stars visible beyond the chamber. What happens next? She asked. That depends, Elias said, on whether the Concord chooses cooperation or control. Her eyes narrowed. Explain. If you tighten authority, he said, systems will resist. If you decentralize without planning, chaos follows. There is a middle path, and humanity walks it? She asked. We help map it, Elias replied. The Empress felt something unfamiliar, relief. Not because the situation was solved, but because someone else finally saw the cracks she had been ignoring. Across the Concord, rumors spread. Humans were no longer insignificant. They were unsettling. Trade envoys requested meetings. Intelligence agencies demanded data. Younger species watched with cautious hope. Older empires watched with fear. Elias remained calm through it all. The mark on his arm was no longer hidden. It did not need to be. One cycle later, the Empress received a report that made her pause. Several independent systems had quietly adopted human-designed trade redundancies. No announcement, no treaty. Just change. She looked at Elias. You didn't tell them to do this, she said. No, he agreed. They noticed the same problems. She laughed softly, a sound rarely heard. The legend did not conquer, she said. It inspired. Elias met her gaze. That was the point. Far beyond the Concord, small shifts were already happening. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. The galaxy had not yet realized it was being prepared, and humanity, once ignored, now stood at the center of attention without ever asking for it. The mark had been seen, and the quiet work had begun. The changes began quietly. At first, they looked like coincidences, a trade delay that corrected itself before becoming a crisis, a border dispute that cooled without mediation, a resource shortage that never quite happened. The Galactic Concord noticed these things, but no one connected them, except the Empress. She sat alone in her private chamber, reviewing reports that did not belong together.
Economic summaries from 3 rival empires showed the same pattern.
Minor disruptions appeared, then vanished, always near systems that had recently consulted with human analysts, always where human-designed redundancy models had been tested. Too neat. She summoned Elias. He arrived without escort, hands empty, expression calm as ever. You are doing more than advising, she said. Elias did not deny it. We are sharing tools, he replied. Others choose to use them. You said you would not intervene openly, the Empress said.
We aren't, Elias said. We are offering alternatives.
Adoption is voluntary. She studied him. And if they refuse? Then we prepare elsewhere, he answered. That answer disturbed her more than any threat could have. Across the Concord, reactions diverged. Smaller civilizations adapted quickly. They had lived close to failure for generations. Human systems made sense to them. Distributed trade, shared risk pools, flexible alliances instead of rigid blocks. Their stability increased. Larger empires resisted. They called human models inefficient. too cautious, too slow. They trusted scale and authority. They trusted that power would always force solutions. But then the first real test arrived. A major trade hub suffered a cascading logistics failure. No attack, no sabotage, just a rare alignment of delays, miscommunications, and over-optimized routes. Ships waited, markets panicked. Blame spread faster than facts. The Concorde prepared emergency measures. Before they could act, the failure stabilized. Not because the system recovered, but because alternative routes activated automatically. Routes designed using human principles, quietly integrated months earlier by junior planners who had been listening. The crisis ended without drama. The Veil were furious. They summoned the Empress and demanded explanation. "This proves our strength," their lead delegate declared. The system corrected itself. The Empress looked at the data. "No," she said. "It avoided collapse. The difference mattered." Elias was invited, then required, to attend more councils, not as a representative of humanity, but as a consultant to the Concorde itself. He never accepted titles. He never requested authority. That unsettled everyone. Delegates asked him direct questions now. What happens if a major empire withdraws? What if resource scarcity increases? What if trust collapses? Elias answered honestly. "Then some systems fail," he said, "but not all." They did not like that answer. "You accept failure?" a strategist demanded. "We plan for it," Elias replied. "There is a difference. Slowly, dependence formed. Not officially. No treaties announced it. But when problems arose, someone always asked, 'What does the human model say?'" The Empress watched pride fracture across the hall. Older empires struggled with the idea that control was no longer enough. Younger species watched humans with something close to awe. One cycle, a coalition attempted to bypass human frameworks entirely. They centralized control, tightened regulations, enforced unity. On paper, it was perfect. In reality, it created bottlenecks. When a minor disturbance occurred, the system had no flexibility. The collapse was not dramatic. It was embarrassing. Aid arrived not from the Concorde, but from neighboring systems, already using human redundancy planning. They did not conquer. They helped. Afterward, whispers spread. Human systems were not powerful. They were resilient. The Empress called Elias again.
"You are changing the balance of the galaxy," she said.
Elias shook his head. "We are revealing it." She leaned back, eyes distant. "The legend warned of this moment," she said softly.
"Not invasion. Transition. Yes," Elias said.
"Transitions are always uncomfortable." She hesitated. "Some empires are afraid," she admitted. "They believe humanity is replacing them." Elias met her gaze. "We are not a replacement," he said. "We are a support structure. That still changes who matters," she replied. Yes, Elias agreed. That honesty earned him both trust and resentment. As cycles passed, a new pattern emerged. Species that cooperated with humans stabilized. Species that resisted did not collapse, but they strained. They required more effort to maintain the same results. The Concorde itself began shifting. Decisions took longer, but they lasted. Emergency powers were used less often. That frightened those who relied on crisis to maintain relevance. One day, the Empress received a private message marked with the highest priority. An ancient empire, one of the founding powers of the Concorde, was considering withdrawal. Not in protest, in fear. They believe the Concorde no longer serves them, the speaker said quietly. The Empress closed her eyes. Withdrawal would fracture everything. She summoned Elias immediately. This could undo everything, she said. Elias listened carefully. What are they afraid of? He asked. That they no longer control outcomes, she replied. Elias nodded. Then they are finally seeing reality. That does not help me, she snapped. He remained calm. Let me speak to them, he said. They will not listen, she replied. They will, Elias said. Because they are afraid. The meeting took place in a neutral system. No Concord symbols. No human banners. Just conversation. The ancient empire's leaders were proud, weary, and defensive. You weaken authority, they accused Elias. You dilute power. Elias did not argue. You confuse power with stability, he said. They are not the same. We ruled for millennia, they said, and the galaxy survived you, Elias replied gently. That matters? They bristled. You think yourself superior? No, Elias said. We think survival is shared. The discussion lasted for cycles. In the end, the Empire did not withdraw. They adapted. Not fully, but enough. When Elias returned, the Empress watched him carefully. You did not promise them dominance, she said. No, Elias replied. I promised relevance, she laughed softly. That is more dangerous. Yes, Elias agreed. By now, the mark on his arm was recognized everywhere, not as a symbol of authority, as a warning. Across the galaxy, myths shifted. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were studied. Some feared them, some admired them. But all were adjusting to a truth they could not ignore. Humanity did not lead from the front. They stood at the weak points. They did not command. They connected. One quiet cycle, the Empress stood before the Concord again. The galaxy is changing, she announced. We can pretend it is not, or we can shape the change. Eyes turned to Elias, not because he demanded it, because he represented the future they were already living in. Far from the Concord in human space, no celebrations occurred. No one cheered. No fleets gathered. Humans continued their work quietly, watching, mapping, preparing. The legend was no longer hidden, and the galaxy was beginning to understand the most unsettling truth of all. Humanity was not waiting to rule. They were waiting to be needed.